where you are. You are sitting there watching the due process presentation of the Oakland Bar Association. We've come to you every year at this time, every day, every week, or every month, or every time you see the show. At this particular time, 9 years. We are starting our 9th year on television here. And we've invited two guests, Doug Peters and Beverly Hires, to talk to you. Maybe you want to pass this information on, but we're having some interesting discussions regarding breast implants and the types that are being used and the fact that people, surprisingly, are still opting to use it. Before we go to our experts, I'd like to introduce you to our panel members who have questions for either Beverly Hires or Doug Peters. So please introduce yourself and ask your question.
My name is Leslie Friedman. And I wanted to know, is this settlement really fair to all the women, regardless of the extent of their illnesses?
Well, there is a global settlement that has been proposed. Under that settlement, there are certain compensation categories and only a certain amount of money to fund them at given periods of time. The concern that the plaintiff lawyers have, which I have, is that too many women will not get adequately compensated if they opt into this settlement. There are women who have injuries that are in excess of what the settlement could cover, even if they had the maximum recovery under the settlement.
Okay, what do you mean by global settlement? Because I don't know anything about that.
Well, what they're trying to do in the national level in the class action that was filed in Ohio, basically, was to propose a settlement where all the defendants will contribute a certain amount of money, and the idea is that most women, or virtually all women, they're hoping, will opt in to settle under those terms and forego their right to pursue their own separate case.
So that doesn't foreclose their right to bring their own action?
Not at all.
Oh, okay. But is that sort of like class action, sort of an easy way for people to look at it? I'm going to take my compensation and just get out of here?
No. For certain women, the global settlement is the only chance they will have having to recover money because their implants were made by Bioplasty, Mentor, or McGann after 1984. McGann has no money after 1984. 3M sold it. Bioplasty is in Chapter 11 bankruptcy. Mentor has no money. The women who have very small injuries, if you pay to go to court, pay for your trial expenses, it may be that you'd be better off under the settlement. Women with very severe injuries would be better off opting out and taking their cases to court if they can sue, if their product was made by a collectible defendant.
Okay,
correct.
Let's go down next panel member and introduce yourself. And
I'm Mary Ann.
You're going to also tell us something about what you do.
I'm Mary Ann Zukoski. I have a cleaning service here in town. I'm wondering about the women who don't hear about this on time. What is the time limit? I mean, is there a time limit to when they can file or not file or anything like that?
The details have not been fully worked up, but the answer is probably no. Women who have breast implants in now, half of them have had their implants put in since 1985. There's an 8 to 9 year latency period, so half the women who have implants in now have not developed any symptoms. The global settlement as it's been proposed would be funded over 30 years, so as women became aware that they were having problems, they could then come in and make claims.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, our next panel member.
My name is David Lutz, and I'm a law clerk at a law firm. My question is, what are you exactly suing for? Is there like a breach of warranty or an inherent risk? Were the women informed that the product is virtually safe?
Well, there are a number of legal theories, and in Michigan, it's a general product liability law, failure to warn, a defective product, misrepresentation of what the product's risks are, and that perhaps even the product was not even fit to even be marketed. And that's what we believe to be true and many scientists believe to be true.
Okay. Our next panel member.
Yeah, I'm Donna Gilardoni. I'm a community health nurse in Oakland County. My question is, if a woman goes with the global settlement and receives a sum of money and 10 years later develops the lupus or scleroderma, which is obviously a much more severe disease, can she go back to that fund, or is she precluded from?
If she opted to participate, and let's say under the compensation scheme, her low level of injury entitled her to $200,000. She later developed a more serious injury that may be compensated at $2 million. She would get a set-off for the $200,000, so could go back for the $1.8 million. That's one of the benefits, so that the women who have small amounts of damage are probably better off considering opting in, because if you go to trial with a small amount of damage and that's all you recover, you can't come back again if you develop a more serious injury, whereas under the global settlement you could.
Okay, next question. Let's go down, because we have a lot of questions back here.
Yeah, my name is Connor Farrick. I'm also a law clerk. My question is, to recover from this global fund, are the diseases or the symptoms that you develop limited? Do you have to have certain symptoms in order to collect, or can you just show that there's some relationship between your breast implants and your suffering to recover?
That's one of the concerns that many plaintiffs and plaintiffs' attorney have with the global settlement. You have to have a certain number of symptoms in a certain category, or you don't fit that category. You have to have, and it may be hard that women who are very ill may not fit into a particular category because they don't have a number of the right symptoms, and
So
that's a concern.
Do you think that's unfair, or?
Certainly, for that person who's definitely injured and can't fit into a category that would adequately compensate them, that's a major concern. Another concern that plaintiffs have, and to go back to another question that was asked just a moment ago, and that is, if you go back and you accept your $200,000 settlement and go back 10 years later, there may not be $1.8 million left in that fund. According to the terms and the policy set forth under the settlement that I have reviewed, there is a provision that if there isn't enough money, they can reduce the amount that they pay you. In other words, you can opt into the settlement and not get what you thought you were going to get, and you can waive your rights without even knowing what you ultimately will get, and that's a major concern.
Actually, it doesn't work quite that way if, when you go back and there is not enough money, or there is not as much money as they promised, you can then opt out. That's called the second opt-out, and then you can go to court on that new, more serious disease.
Okay, Doug Peters, Beverly Hills, I want to ask you, this is a completely unrehearsed show, right?
Correct.
You've not been here before in this format, and as a matter of fact, we have a brand new set. In furtherance of my statement, I don't understand this. You people are pretty definite about what you're saying, and you know, we don't take positions on this show, but we let people talk about what they believe to be true. But I know women who a year ago, were having breast implants using that saline package put in their bodies. Now, these were intelligent women. They weren't living under a rock. They knew about this. In furtherance, let me just say this to you. Let me ask Leslie Friedman. Well. I mean, you're a professional person, right?
Right.
After hearing what you've heard today and knowing what you know, would you elect to have breast augmentation using those pouches?
I wouldn't consider it.
Do you know people who have?
I know people that have had the surgery, but prior to any of these disclosures.
Well, it's incredible. I mean, how can there be people, and I told you at the break that I watched a television program of models and actresses who are still doing this.
That's right. There's a disinformation program, and a lot of the plastic surgery community, even today, doesn't believe that there's a problem with the implants. And you go to your doctor, and who are you going to believe? Your doctor tells you.
That's the point. Doug, you said that the doctors are given this product and they say it's safe, so we're not suing the doctors. How could a doctor possibly say, we're going to let you do this. I'm going to implant these in your body. Knowing what he knows and knowing what you all know and knowing what we know, how could that be? How could this be allowed to occur?
The silicone gels are not being put in by doctors today. The doctors are usually the last to know. The doctors were lied to by the manufacturers, as the women were. There is a publication lag time so that the research that us lawyers know is coming into the pipeline that will be published in the journals has not yet hit the journals. The doctors have not yet seen it. There's also the psychological phenomena. They don't want to believe they've caused harm over the last 30 years, so there's a lot of denial.
But even the saline, which is something that is soluble in the body and all that stuff, even that package is a problem, the package that it comes in. So I don't understand how a doctor can say, hey, no problem, it hasn't been proved to be detrimental to you, we're going to use it. How can a doctor say that?
A lot of doctors believe that these products were approved by the FDA. not realizing that they were on the market solely because they grandfathered in, never had to prove safety, because the Medical Device Act wasn't passed till '76, and these were on the market before.
You're two responsible people. Your reputation precedes you to this show. You know what you're talking about. And I want a statement before we go to another break. Should people have any type of breast augmentations that they can say to themselves, I can sleep at night knowing this is not leaching into my body, leaching into my system?
There are no studies, whether it be saline or silicone, that show that they're safe.
Okay.
But the studies about saline are ongoing at this time. They're looking at that.
I would say an older woman, maybe 65 years old, who is having a mastectomy would be reasonably safe, probably having the salines, because she'll probably be dead of other causes before they fail and cause illness. Younger women should not be having them, and that's what's wrong
By
with
the
this
way,
product.
are we only talking about women? What about men who have cosmetic augmentation as a result of prostate cancer?
Well, it's the prostate augmentation is a little different. That's a harder silicone. The men analogy is the soft testicles.
Any studies been done on soft testicles?
We're finding the same illnesses in the men, but the testicles are smaller.
Let me take a break so I can cool off here. We'll be back on Due Process right after this. We're talking